For good evening, welcome to the EDIC meeting of the town of Templeton. First item on the agenda is pledge of allegiance. Mike, would you lead us?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second item on the agenda is review minutes of June 26, 2023. If you'd like to take a moment and review, or you reviewed at home, either way. I'll pause for motion in a second, then we'll move to a vote when you folks are ready. By the way, we have a quorum for this evening's meeting. I should have stated that before. Thank you.
I have a couple comments on the minutes,
Here we go.
if I will. In the outsourcing digitally, about 2/3 of the way down in the paragraph, it says EDIC supports Steve Castle in getting quotes via email while following the procurement process. So I just want to make sure that that's okay if we approve an RFQ or an RFP. And I see that the motion that was made was getting quotes and putting it on the next agenda. But I just want to make sure everyone knows that was not my intention to ask you to bypass any kind of procurement procedures. So,
I think we all understood that.
Okay.
When I look to the other members, I'm getting nods. You know. I
okay,
think that was clear. It was clear to me, so,
Yeah.
but, clarification is always good. Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
That's why we have minutes, and we want to make sure we know.
which is why you'll see an RFQ in a few minutes.
Okay. All right, very good. So this is a nice segue to that when we get there, right?
Yes,
All right, having said that, Steve, any other comments?
I'm all set.
Concerns for Mike?
I would make a motion to accept the minutes for the June 26 EIC meeting minutes.
We've got a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Liz seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll look for a vote. Mike,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes,
chair votes aye to make it unanimous. All right, that's item 2 of the minutes. Thank you all very much. So, Steve, to your point, items 2, draft RFQ, RFP for digital marketing services, and then 3 draft logo updates. I have for you for both of those. You want to talk about number 2, draft RFQ, RFP?
sure.
Thank you. You have the gavel.
Okay, so we prepared this from the positive reception received at the last meeting about doing an RFQ or an RFP for digital marketing services that could be bundled across multiple platforms if a digital marketer is so inclined. And how I set this up, obviously it needs more language in it, and Adam is good about helping me with these things and putting the bureaucratic language and rules and regulations that we want to abide by in that. But what I did, if you want to read through it, the different services for starting with Templeton EDIC would be to consult on a strategic marketing plan, social media development, establish and execute a newsletter, database management and content development. As we go down with what TCTV is doing with Wachusett Business Incubator and forming a digital lab, I sort of ordered these in the priority that I think that there's a greater need. So EDIC, we don't have any social media. There's a lot of need for it. The digital lab at WBI, we're starting to get word out. Not quite as much. Montechusett.tv, we're working some social media with that, but we could use help in certain areas, and TCTV, we're fairly well established, at least on Facebook. But again, we could use some professional guidance in some areas, and we have to establish things like newsletters, and that's a bit out of our scope or our area of expertise right now. So what I would welcome from the board is to kind of brainstorm a little bit, and if you have any other ideas of what we should do for digital marketing, especially with EDIC, or if you have questions about why something is here or what I'm thinking about, please fire away.
Send me something.
It should have been in the last packet. Oh, there's nothing, it's not
There
in
wasn't
here. I'm
anything-
sorry.
There wasn't anything in the
That's okay.
last
This is-
packet.
Well, you know what? I'm on Zoom. I can share it.
Okay, wonderful,
So.
whether electronically or.
Thank you.
We-
Thank you for letting me know, Laurie. No, don't be. No, I'm sorry I didn't see it.
Steve did a pretty good job of being able to at least frame it. And so I think it still would have been even if we didn't have the document open in front of us, I still, in terms of a brainstorm. I thought you did a good job
Oh, thank you.
teeing it up, as they say.
Okay, so
Administrative-
here's what I'm saying.
administrative Question, so if we're in Zoom and this, you're showing this to us, then the people who are viewing us can see this document now?
yes,
Just, I'm not used to your system, so I need to ask these
Okay.
dumb questions,
And-
okay?
and
Thank
when-
you.
And when we get to the meeting minutes, this will be included in the list of meeting.
yes, and I will make sure you have this document.
Made available.
Okay,
Okay, Steve, right?
so the platforms to be served, EDIC, the digital lab at WBI Montechusett.tv and TCTV, as I said. Some of the needs are common, and this is why I think that they could be bundled, and obviously we have some shared interests, so that may help out as well. If a digital marketer is so inclined to want to bundle services for us. And again, EDIC, the focus I think would be to get businesses to locate or relocate in Templeton. So
Yeah.
lead generation and create opportunities for existing businesses, as I believe we've talked about. And as I said, I would start by, having a strategic marketing plan, and maybe a digital marketer can help consult with us on that and start, who are we trying to reach? What's our goal? What are our goals? And then how to implement it, and what kind of social media do we need? Do we need to be on Facebook? Do we need to be on other platforms?
LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn would be probably very good for us here. Establish and execute an e-newsletter, electronic newsletter that requires database and a database management. And of course, I think a good digital marketer can help us with the content development, because we're not marketers per se. So that would be EDIC, the digital lab that we're forming with Wachusett Business Incubator. A little bit less of a need, even though that's still very formative. And again, consult on a strategic marketing plan, social media plan, e-newsletter, database management. We shouldn't need the content development that we can take care of from TCTV side. And the same with Montechusett.tv. We really, again, probably need some help with consulting on a strategic marketing plan, whether we have some ideas of things we want to do. Should we be on Instagram or Twitch or another platform in addition? It's daunting because you really should try to get good at one social media platform before you try to do a bunch of others. So I'm careful about that. And again, database establishment and consulting on that with e-newsletters and TCTV, much of the same as Montechusett TV. But again, we could learn to do things better. Or say, hey, one of my questions with TCTV, this is a little outside the EDIC scope, is, we have a business page. There are lots of groups out there. Groups are very powerful on Facebook. Do we want some groups you can't join as a business page? Right? Do we want to be distributing TCTV news posts in groups? Sometimes members of the groups do that. But it could be a way, using the groups could be a way to increase our eyeballs, so to speak.
There's, all of the different online, the different online outlets out there, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all these different, the newer ones that, I don't even, Twitch is the gaming ones, right? In terms of what we're trying to accomplish, it's not like entertainment, we're not, unless we were holding an event or something where we wanted to have like a mixer for, local business people or something where you would want to be in a Facebook more of an entertainment venue. I'd rather stay in professional and engage with professionally, you know, like something like LinkedIn or something that has a channel where it's not entertainment first, business later.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree. I don't think EDIC should be on Twitch.
yeah,
I was thinking more in terms of TCTV, if we, because a lot of musicians are on it, if we get into the live local music scene,
Yeah.
we may want to do that. But yeah, I could see EDIC being on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
the digital app being on certain platforms, TCTV and Montechusett TV being on certain platforms, but there should be some crossover at some points.
I just want to make sure we stay within all the rules as far as what money is used where and when and how. I think they're all great ideas. I think we should be doing these kinds of things, but I just want to make sure that we're taking appropriate funds out of the appropriate buckets. And that we, you know,
For the appropriate tasks.
yes,
Yes, ma'am.
yes,
Yes,
I-
yes, well stated.
just want to make sure we stay there.
Mhm.
I, the more publicity we have for the town as far as what we want to be doing. There's another quote sitting out there, which can't talk because it's not on the agenda. Just making sure we have things in the right order as far as what we intend on doing, how we want to do it. I do think we need something like this. I love it. I just want to make sure we're doing it correctly.
and someone to do it for us.
Yes.
I think we're all.
We all have day jobs.
Right.
Right.
Also, this is an outsourced task to a consultant to advise us, guide us on the right things. And thank you all for educating me what Twitch is. Because I thought a Twitch was something else. And I didn't know it was a social media tool. And I think, yeah, we need to, we already touched it, you already started the issue about the appropriateness of having our information on certain media outlets, regardless of their name,
Yeah.
where it's appropriate, where it's not appropriate, and so on and so forth. And actually, that was something I was gonna touch on later, in item 7, so.
So I'm fine with any input, and if you want, you know, even to Liz's point with TCTV, scratch, okay, you know, we're not gonna put any money toward Twitch.
Yeah,
Well, TCTV being on Twitch, maybe a consultant says you should be there and we'll go do it ourselves.
Yeah,
And that's fine with me.
just like,
So-
then I just make sure we get the right buckets, the right.
I participate a lot in the Scottish Highland community. You know, there is a clan curry, Scottish clan curry. And I'm close with the commander, right? Of getting in a little into the details. I know of like how the Scottish diaspora works. But he's one guy trying to run this, and he hired an agency to do this for him. And what happened after he hired the agency and they had the right direction, like use this logo, they understood the content, like what you were talking, or I forget if it was you or Steve, but the return on investment has been unbelievable from hiring a firm that actually knows how to do this. They know the right spaces, they know the connections, like a lot of the applications you were talking about. If you like the Meta, everything is Meta, that you post on one that allows you to post on others, so that you're not trying to duplicate effort. But I remember having that skeptical approach of trying to use our Clan Curry funds to be able to do that, and we were gonna like losing. But like I said, the return on investment has been huge. We've been able to get more followers, more people doing donations and otherwise. I'm not on the board, but just to watch something positive get good because they had a good marketing plan.
Good marketing plan is appropriate. So this is a really good step to get in a consultant to advise us. And, you know, the only suggestion I would make in here is, Steve, is maybe the words comma as appropriate somewhere. If there's one sentence about social media tools to be used as appropriate, or something like that
Mhm.
would bluntly address Liz's comment. It would cover us. You know, in the appropriateness of the use of funds.
Yeah.
Because it, you know, and it's a signal to
Yeah.
the consultant about some things may not, I mean. Just to sum up, I think there are appropriate social media tools, and then there are less than appropriate social media tools. For example, if we decide that Twitch is not appropriate, that's great. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna trust all of you with that. I have reservations about also other social media outlets where they are more for interpersonal connection, but they are used for business. But at the core, what's our audience? And in a marketing plan, we always have to realize what's our audience, and then use the appropriate tools. Is it Site Selection Magazine? Yes. I've been doing a lot of reading lately about, the only place you really need to advertise if you're looking for companies on the smokestack chasing side, not the organic growth side, is the Wall Street Journal. And it's only a few $1,000s. That's the only place you really need to advertise, because everybody reads that, who's looking for places to expand. But there are some other vehicles, and that's great. I'll bring some more in, and I'll provide documents. We went through some training recently on marketing and attraction to businesses to help EDOs, economic development organizations. I'll give those to Lori. We can put them in hard copy. If you want to put them in their binders, then we can let them know they're in. People can get. And then I can email them to you if you want to be the repository, and Jess also, if you guys can get
Yeah,
them.
just make sure you put in there. Kick to remind me that you sent them.
No. Okay, point taken. My point is that there are appropriate tools, there are appropriate vehicles, there are ones that are most appropriate. I think if we get a consultant, they can help educate us, because I'm definitely a newbie and neophyte in that area, but I have certain reservations about certain social media tools. I don't think they're appropriate there, but that's not for tonight. That's for getting the consultant on. Some counsel. To Steve's point about I volunteered to do this, let's get this out. And I say, yes, let's put it out there.
And this isn't just about social media too, because I think the biggest thing one of the biggest things we could probably do is, establish electronic newsletters across the board. And that's where my group is lacking in that. We may be ready to do that at some point, but we haven't been able to get there. We need some direction in doing that too. So across the board, and I think that can be really powerful.
And there's creating the plan with the aid of a consultant, then there's implementing without any staff to really do, no offense to the people that we have, if they are not our full-time staff, Justin or anybody else, to do implementation of EDIC. Well, we don't have a staff person, we don't have, not per se, but at all. So then there's having these plans, then how can we make them work? Who can push buttons when? And consultants are great, but you only have consultant money for so long. And 200,000 sounds like a lot of money for the contract that we're going to talk about later with the state, but it will run out. So, we don't have recurring revenue stream to hire a staff to do something. And in my day job, my biggest flaw in my day job is not doing a newsletter for my 22 communities at the regional planning agency. We have a lot to say, a lot to state, a lot to get out there. But we are so overwhelmed with so much money flowing out of Washington, D.C. and so many contracts. It's like, oh my God. I mean, I really have to hire bluntly, like an intern for 12 months a year, but I can't chase interns every semester. Because it's that level of, I mean, they know it. I got to hire a 14 to 24-year-old to push social media because they know how to do it, man. But I don't, and I don't. So the point is, we should do this, proceed with this. I don't have any other comments other than the as appropriate, stuff.
I did have
As needed.
Glenn, I had a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
More along the lines of what Liz was talking about. So, why are all of them? Is there a reason? Did I not hear you correctly? Why they're all being bundled together? EDIC, Digital Lab, TCTV, Montechusett. Like, who's going to pay for it? And then there becomes scope, right?
I just want to make sure.
How can you do that? Or, can it be done where do we buy time? Like, let's say you find the right marketing firm and they're reading this and they're like, tell us are all these the same thing? No, they're not. Okay. And some of them might have fenced money, meaning they can't, their money can't pay for someone else's stuff. How would we manage that, or can we do it that way?
I think,
The time sharing or so many hours?
Or are we writing checks?
I think the digital marketers and,
Or MOA.
their quotes or their proposals, would determine that. I mean, you may have two different companies that have two different ideas of how to do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get, let's say we hire a digital marketer and it's 90% EDIC and all the other stuff is, they'll do it as it's related. But I think to get to what I was kind of hearing from your original point was, I originally thought to do this not just because TCTV and Montechusett TV and the digital lab could need help as well. I view them all as economic development tools, right? CCTV should be an economic development tool for the town of Templeton, in addition to all the other things that it does. Montechusett TV was created with a grant from the Mass Office of Business Development to help businesses be more resilient. You know, in a sense, we're in the business of economic development on the grassroots level. And the digital lab with Wachusett Business Incubator is meant to help entrepreneurs. And we're hoping to attract a young, higher tech workforce with that. So I view it all as economic development and tie in, and maybe, you know, a digital marketer could say, okay, yeah, so for the TCTV and Montechusett TV stuff, we're only going to do the stuff that's economic development. And I still don't know exactly how to parse that, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Maybe with the consultant's guidance and with our input and staying within the state contract boundaries. To your
Right.
earlier points, I think we'll be able to, and thank you for clarifying, Steve, because I was confused under the platforms to serve EDIC, digital lab, Montechusett, TCTV, because I was originally viewing those until 2 minutes ago as the vehicles through which Templeton EDIC would publicize the community as an attractive place to grow a business. But I better understand what you're saying now.
Mhm.
They are all really economic development engines that we should work collaboratively.
I think they can be.
They can be,
Mhm.
and I think they serve a dual purpose. They can be economic development engines to train and hire people to create, because all of those could be, you know,
They're
businesses, but they're also outreach vehicles,
Mhm.
like the social media tools, not Twitch. Okay. Lori, may I ask in the public meeting, if we're at the admin or Jessica, whomever it's appropriate. So we are going to look at this state contract within a little while, but what we don't have here is the actual budget sheet. Could we get a copy of the budget sheet also? For here, and then we can obviously share it online, I guess. with folks at home.
Doing logos next, right?
Yeah, there's time. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And that's fine. Thank you, Lori.
Not a problem.
Okay, wonderful.
So if the board wishes, I can work with the town administrator on putting together, you know, something final. And like I said, he just helped us out with RFPs for TCTV, for Montechusett TV and the digital lab to seek partners. So we can put something together and bring it to the next meeting for a final approval, if you like.
On an admin note, I saw that and then wearing another hat and another life. I saw that it was very well put together by local staff. So you and Adam did a great job, by the way. This I'm approving. The question is about what's due. So when you follow the state procurement statute 30B, and that's what applies here, they have dollar thresholds for whether you just do general business practices or do phone or email quotes. You always have to have something written, and over $50,000, you have to advertise certainly, blah, blah, blah. So that's all in the manual. It's all in the 30B procurement manual that are all online. Do we know what the value of this contract might be? And obviously 30B will dictate the advertising procedures that you and Adam have to follow. Do you have an idea of what they got budget to be on this so far? Or is that to be determined?
I think it's going to be determined, but, and it
You
may
have to have
be
an idea of what the
determined
value-
of what you want too, you know, to say, okay, you know, but I would think you're talking, you know, for a year contract,
Yeah.
or it could be 30,000 and up.
Okay.
And I'm taking a ballpark guess.
And that's fine.
It
And
could
this,
be
you know,
50 or more,
the-
and you might not want to do that. You might want to commit that kind of.
So two
money to
things.
it.
So the state statute allows a municipality to call and get some assistance from the private sector, and just be careful that you follow the rules, because then there's some provisions on how you treat that person that helped you build a budget. That's allowed within the state procurement process. Then separately from that, what you just touched on is if there's a menu of choices for services, then we do something together to avoid bid splitting later on. But as long as we're upfront about, we'd like this A, that's our priority, we'd like this B, that's our secondary, and we'd like this C, that's our, you know, primary, tertiary, secondary, tertiary objectives. As long as we're clear in the RFP or the RFQ, then we can back out of things later on. So if you have three $10,000 things, you really didn't want to go to the third thing, and they're all 10,000, you can back out of the third 10, you can just do the 20. So 30B allows for this. It's just, you know, as long as we stick to the manual and the law, we're fine. We're fine, no problem. I just was curious about what you thought about value. I get it, thanks.
And I think I can say this, but before I'd still, can we put on the next agenda?
What do you need?
I would like to talk about what money we have versus what money we need to be, we want to be spending, or
But
is
that'll be
that,
under
or
item
is that,
5 tonight.
that
which
is on-
the-
okay.
And that's why I asked Laura to go scoot up for the budget, which is attached to these documents. So we will be discussing that on the
Okay.
published agenda tonight under item 5.
all right, I'll
Yeah,
hold.
and that might be a standing agenda item forever, always to have this on the, so we can always talk about, are we within budget, are we compliance with the contract, and so
Yeah.
on and so forth. Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that later.
okay, deal. Deal.
If you're looking for some sort of, do you?
I would ask for what Steve's looking for. Is he looking for a blessing and a vote to proceed with issuing an RFQ with Adams Town Administrator's assistance? Are you looking for that? I'm not trying to
If I
paraphrase.
need it, yes.
I think it's clean, just to say, I mean, just do marching orders, it's just always take a public vote in the public with a quorum, and that way you have clear direction.
Okay, and then,
How would you narrate a motion that you need to proceed? Because someone could then just say, so moved, it's a lot cleaner.
One more strike and mouth.
I would say, I would say a motion would be to allow me to work with the town administrator on forming an RFP or an RFQ. Or both.
For this purpose as presented this evening,
Yes.
this.
Mhm.
publicized document. Or, unless for the public record, for digital marketing services across multiple platforms. So that would be the essence of the.
Mhm.
for the very- If somebody wants to say so moved, we can get on that.
So moved.
So move, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so it's on the table for discussion on the motion.
Just,
Please, yes, sir, Mike.
just in terms of, billable hours to work on all this stuff, I don't know how. What the impact will be on your schedule or Adam's schedule. I definitely don't want any kind of like a non-interference kind of. Get it done, but it should be prioritized based on you and the town administrators, what else is going on. I don't want you to bang your head against the wall during budget time, to get done. So that's the only thing I would just say, watch your hour allocation.
Minimal impact on staff.
Yeah,
Staff
exactly.
resources.
Yep.
That's
Will
a
do.
fair point. I think Steve would have probably said the same thing. He's probably agreeing every syllable. you said, probably. I don't want to put words.
Everything we do.
Yeah. We covered it. Liz,
How much time are we really? I have no idea how much time this sort of thing takes.
To produce the RFP.
Yeah, is this a 2-hour thing? Is this a 2-week thing? I'm time hours to your point.
Well, I recently handed the town administrator something like this for other RFPs and, I worked on it over months here and there, tweaking it and that, and then presented it to him, and he and I sat in the office, and in an hour it was done.
typically when you're writing an RFP of several tens or dozens of pages, if you have a good template and you've used it recently and you're filling in the blanks on a new deadline and someone provides you a scope, it's all about scope,
Mhm.
budget, timeline, what else is in there, Mike? Good RFP,
No, you're right.
Time frame.
timeline. Yep.
right? And, it always says, in compliance with, Master Law, Chapter 30, blah, blah, blah. But if it's a federal funded program, then it's the federal 2 CFR plus 30B and so on and so forth. If you've got a good boilerplate, it doesn't take long. I mean, I will confess, I can take 2 to 5 business days of interrupted time to put together an RFP, but I don't do them that often. I'm at the position where I'm out of practice at the moment because I'm in a different world than the planners and the people that do this. But, doing the scope can take most of the time, doing the RFP can take, it might be 50-50. So everybody's different. That's from a person that's developed RFPs
Yeah.
and you could get,
The better you have out there, the better quote you're gonna get back.
that's
You-
true.
Even if you give a framework, he's got some pretty good, he has the bullets in here to basically necessitate the work, so. It's the shell of it's already there, it's putting it in the right format, so it gets put out there on the connector.
And the RFP I saw that came out from town of Templeton and that other RFP, that's a tight RFP. That was well done. That's a good, I thought it was a good boilerplate, good model. So I don't think it'll be dozens of dollars because they just did one. So
Right.
that's a really
It's
good
just-
question.
Just, I don't have a good expectation.
Yeah.
So,
I think, but leading us, like, well, how long will it take to go? Then there's the process you issue it, then you've got, you're gonna get the quotes and you're gonna do your evaluation criteria that you're probably gonna have a 3-person committee and all that fun stuff, but it's relatively.
Source selection.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And make sure it's not sole source. Well, nothing we do is sole source, it's always competitive virtually, not in your world, I'm talking about my world.
Both, it depends, just depends on what it is that you're asking for and what the law will allow.
and then. Because, okay, so the EDIC has certain, boundaries, right? Then I'm sure there are other departments in town that would have other boundaries that I want to be efficient. I want to follow the rules
Yeah.
and make sure we stay within,
Right, so there's
Yeah.
one section, I don't have it right now, there's one section about the powers and duties of PICs that's spelled out clearly in the state statute, it says that, we can hire consultants as needed.
Yeah.
And all of those powers and duties are like, 10 to 20 words, they're 1 sentence bullets,
Yeah.
there might be 25 or 30 of them, I can't recall. I'm looking at Lori, we talked about this in the past, but that's our job description. for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So we're well within the enabling state
Mhm.
statute, bottom line.
Good.
We can.
Yeah, gotta do something.
Right, and that's that $200,000 that we will use to hire, a market consultant, maybe an attorney and civil engineer for design and this and market research now analysts and so on and so forth. So this is really the first time we're gonna go out to bid to use this money from the state to do something directly related to the contract, by the way, again, which we will talk about later. Yeah.
Okay.
And thank you for asking the questions that I don't even think about after 30 years in this business.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like what you're doing, Liz, is you're helping ask the really hard, good, fair, basic questions that we all need to respond to as local officials. We deserve to tell the public, we need to tell the public these things. So keep asking those questions.
it's because, I've got zero experience in this area. So I'm asking basic questions because I don't know.
That's fine.
I've read
Keep doing it.
stuff and I'm going, all right, I think we're okay here. I think we're okay here, but let's make sure we're okay
Yeah,
here.
but hold our feet to the fire, because this is
Yeah.
exactly what we need to be telling the public that we're doing, and we have to follow our rules, procedures, and laws.
So thank you for the basic questions. You're going to continue to end up having to give me basic questions.
Keep doing it. Keep doing it. That's okay.
We have a motion.
I do. Thank you for reminding me at this point. I go off on a tangent. I do.
You kicked
Any
out
other
here at some
discussion?
point.
Motion is to allow Steve Castle to work with the TA for RFP for digital marketing services. The discussion added minimal impact on staff and to stay within the statute.
That's perfect.
Any other discussion on the motion? Your word tells me I have little ears. They can't, hear me, but they do hear reasonably well. So all in favor of the motion or opposed, Mike?
I'm good.
You vote?
Yes.
You vote?
Good.
Steve, your vote?
I think I should abstain.
That's fine, then the chairman will make an aye vote in favor, so 3 in favor, no nays, 1 abstention. Steve Castle. Thanks, Jess. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3. Item 3 is draft logo update. So Steve, you still have the floor, basically.
Okay, I'm gonna put my TCTV hat on here, and I think we forgot to remind you that you have a hard stop in an hour.
Yeah.
So, if you want to skip ahead to something else, I know you have a couple of really important items that you want to do.
4 and 5 are actually now combined.
I can hold off on the logos until later in the meeting, or
I think if you don't mind, can we just go over 4 and 5? That's because it's the budget and the scoping. We were just touching on the is that okay with you folks? Yeah, I'm seeing nods. So why don't we do 4 and 5? So 4 is draft MOU for EDIC. For the 200,000. So the MOU, memorandum of understanding for EDIC, Economic Development and Industrial Corporation, town of Templeton for $200,000. And then EOHED, I'm gonna mess this up. Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, and then one of the sub departments changed the name. So the Housing and Economic Development submittal budget and scope. So that's physically what we have on the desk here, and every state contract looks like that at the beginning. It's always I think the point size is about 4. So good luck reading that. But if you would go to the very middle where it says, or just below the middle, it says brief description of contract performance or reason of amendment. Then there's some stuff in parentheses and every state then it says this contract is to fund the project designated in chapter 268 of the Acts of 2022 Economic Development Bill to promote economic development, strengthen health and human services, advance clean energy, expand affordable housing, and invest in local communities, businesses, and workers. Account number 1599-6090, provided further that not less than $200,000 shall be expended for economic development initiatives in the town of Templeton. And that's in quotes, and that's really what our marching orders, and that's about 14 or 12 words. Those are that's what we're supposed to. So Liz, that's what those 10 or 12 words, that's what we have to stay in the boundaries of.
Okay.
As far as this contract is concerned with housing and economic development, this is actually, I believe, been fully executed. I think this came back. Did this come back fully executed from the state? Thank you. I'm saying not from Lori. Thank you, Lori. And what's left over here is the next page is, okay, yes, that party can sign this. That's a typical form, but I have to sign all the time at the office. Then there's a notary public documenting that that's the right signature. And then the next page is a lot of boilerplate, which shows a lot of stuff that the town of Templeton, because they've signed the contract, has to be in compliance with, so on and so forth. We can read that later. And then you get into the meat and potatoes. I'm not going to read all this, but we'll kind of sort of hit the highlights, and then we'll go to the budget that Lori just gave to us, and really it's the last page of that. So this is generally the contract of the Corona State Fiscal Recovery FRF contract amendment. So I'm smelling that this is probably federal funds that pass through the state. So when we do procurement, we'll also have to comply with the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR Part 2. It's Part 200. It's called, and then buried in there this procurement around 200.307 or something like that. So that's something for Steve and Adam to deal with. If they need anything on that, they can call me at the office. Unfortunately, I see those in my sleep. Like I'm sure you do too. So anyway, the contract itself under Corona eligible costs. Again, I'm not going to read all this. I'll hit the headings in this, just so anybody has a question, we can go back to it. Eligible costs talks about you have to do things that are eligible within economic development planning, if you will. Financial management, suspension and debarment. That's an important section. We have to check when we hire consultants that they are not suspended or debarred in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts per those executive orders that are remunerated there. But that falls on really the town of Templeton with the Board of Selectmen, the town administration, Steve. Item number 4 says prohibition on certain telecommunications and video surveillance services. I'm not even going to pretend that I understand that section. Section 5, where did it go? There it is. Section 5, reporting program performance. So we have to do a report. I'm not sure if we have to do quarterlies or annuals, but we'll figure it out and make sure that we can fly. Liz, to your point about making sure every state and federal contract is always a reporting requirement. And we'll make sure that we do that. Submission of such performance reports as HED requires, contractor knowledge. Doesn't say when they're actually due, so we should reach out to HED and find it out. With things like this, sometimes it's a semi-annual and then an annual, like when the project is done. It might be quarterly. I doubt it's quarterly. I've never seen an earmark grant go quarterly. It's usually semi-annually or annually. There's a section for remedies for contract violation. There's a section 7 for contract work hours and safety standards. The town will comply with that. Section 8 Clean Air Act. We got to comply with that. We have to comply with section 9 other federal laws and regulations. It basically says if it's not in the contract here, but it's a federal law or regulation, you better comply with it. And ignorance of the law is no excuses. That's that section. Bird anti-lobbying amendments, section 10. In other words, you can't use this money and hire a lobbyist to go lobby on your behalf. So that's a big one. That's pretty important. Section 11, non-discriminate. That's pretty standard. Don't discriminate against consultants or employees. Unfortunately, we have to have these in contracts because this still happens. 12 publications. To the extent the contractor, in this case, Templeton's authorized directed to produce publications, they'll produce with FRF funds, must display the following language. So we have to copy and paste this language if we have a brochure, if we put something on our website. So I'm pausing on that to show it's a simple thing to comply with. We just copy and paste it and make sure that that gets put on the public. Pretty standard, straightforward stuff. Maintenance of records is item 13. Save your stuff according to the U.S. Treasury rules. I see 7-year rules. And then I see the public records law in the state of Massachusetts, which I will never try to quote because it's all listed. Certain records have certain life expectancy. So some are forever. Somer's
Yeah,
having
federal
years,
documents
so-
are like 6.5. Is that what you're talking about with the seven?
That's the federal, and then the public records law for the state of Massachusetts is 7 for some things, 3 for others. Financial and payroll records are forever. Thou shalt never destroy a payroll record.
Legal
Municipality.
documents
there you
are
go.
forever.
Legal or forever, exactly.
There's a
Bingo.
list.
There's a list, so the state public records are, I'm sure the federal public records law covers this. 13, maintenance and access to public records. Basically, there's a public records and people have access to them, whether it's an auditor or a member of the general public or staff and so on. Now, these others are interesting, 14, 15, and 16. 14 is increasing seatbelt use in the United States. And 15, reducing text messaging while driving. What does this have to do with the economic development work that we're going to be doing? Realistically, in the day job, nothing, but the federal relief funds, the Coronavirus Act, must have had riders. And so every contract that they sign with a grantee, where Templeton is a grantee, that has to be included in the language. So that's why you'll see these things like, why is that there? Well, it's because it's tied to the law. Subcontractors, to the extent contractors permitted to intensely utilize contractors of the contractor, Templeton agrees to incorporate our relevant provisions of this amendment to. So basically, when we hire the marketing consultant, we have to say by reference, and as incorporated as the contract. And by the way, contract, you've got to comply with all this stuff. You can't discriminate. You can't text message while you're on the job either. That's how that stuff works. So that's the contract. And then the budget, thank you, Lori, the attachment A. A lot of standard stuff. But for ease of use, and I want to meet the 55-minute time to be out of here at the prior to the hard stop. For the 4-page document, yeah, just flip over to the back page, which is the budget. And the budget is line item. There's about 5 line items there. One is market assessment. There's a deadline date of 6/30/24 for $45,000. There's a feasibility study, AKA, or also known as business plan for EDIC, done by 6/30/24 for $45,000. There is industrial park siting planning done by 12/31/25, about 45 grand. There's legal marketing and advertising to be done through 6/30/26, which I believe is the termination date of the contract, if I'm not mistaken. So in other words, we've given ourselves some deadlines to do some things by dates for certain dollar amounts. So the legal marketing advertising by June 30/26, 45,000, and supplies 20 grand. I developed this budget with Lori. I picked numbers that, based on my past experience, I thought consultants could be hired, generally speaking, for these buckets. Ironically, not all of them, all the consultants will come in for 45,000 each. Obviously, when you hire, you have scopes of services. And when we do some market assessment work, legal marketing and advertising for $45,000. So that's the line item out of which we would be looking for this marketing consultant to get some marketing assistance. If, to borrow Steve's number earlier, which is not written in stone anywhere, if this turns out to be about 30 grand, then the 30 would come out of the 45 and you still have 15 left to do something. If it's only 20, you pay 20, you still have 25 left to do something. So I'm hitting the highlights. I'm going very quickly. Lori has her hand up and I'm done.
The only thing I would let you know is that I was speaking with Mr. Harrington at the state. They can be amended, so if the price
point.
Yep.
needs to be moved, you can move the budget.
Thank you.
Suspend.
There's a procedure for an email amendment or some sort of, we have to ask them for, and they have to approve it, but they're gonna keep it. Liz?
Yeah, Lori asked the question I was.
Oh, okay. So those aren't set in stone, but everything needs a budget.
Right.
Even block grants have budgets and you can do amendments with the block grants that were in this.
So basically, here's the budget. And at a future date, we can move things around if we need to, but we just need to go talk to the state and get it
Yes,
adjusted.
we would start with Joseph Harrington, who is, he heads up this little corner of.
So he's our liaison or project manager, our contact person at HED. I can't, I'm sitting here now on this date, whatever today is, I'm gonna script the date. So September something, but it's 2023. And right now, I can't see us spending 45,000 in legal marketing and advertising. But we could spend 55, but we just we have to request, we think we might go over. This is the reason you have to justify. And then, they don't rubber stamp things, they want you to justify. But earmark grants is the easiest grant to administer. Yeah, earmark grants and then you have block grants and then everything else in between. Outside of I don't know Mike's world.
Yeah.
So that's different.
I was. Hopefully I can ask this question. Do we know if the town's grant writer is available to EDIC, or is that like a no because of what EDIC is?
So do we have a grant writer?
We do.
Okay,
I don't know what, I
It
don't know
would
if her
be-
services
so the way
are
I would-
available to EDIC.
The way that I understand the structure is that she works directly for the town administrator. So if we had a request, kind of like Steve is kind of proving that connection there to say, I know we know what he needs. He needs access to the procurement officer. So he winds up going to Adam and saying, you have time to sit down and create this. If she works for the town administrator, we would make a request to the town administrator for that kind of support. So that's a roundabout way to say, yes. It's just, it's gonna be a TA. It'll be a question to the TA.
So on a later agenda item, if we could, please, sir, for our next thing.
well, how about Glenn? Please, Glenn. You don't need to
Please,
say
Glenn.
this either, but the
Please.
source stuff, I don't.
Please,
Liz, what do you
Glenn,
need?
yeah, I would like on a future agenda item.
Yeah.
That the possibility of being able to ask for the usage of grant writer services on a future meeting, please, so we can follow things correctly.
So I made a disclosure as chair of the select board that the grant writer is my daughter. And I have a disclosure with it's been filed with the town clerk, but for this body sitting with you on the EDIC, that's my disclosure, is that it is my daughter. So anything that would wind up affecting her position or salary or otherwise, I would recuse myself.
Thanks for throwing out the public.
Yeah,
comment. I appreciate that,
absolutely.
because I didn't know. and
I'd get
didn't
grilled
know
if
we
I
had a
didn't.
grant writing- I didn't know we had a provider.
Yes, yes, we do.
Is this?
Almost a month.
It's new? Is this a W-2 or a 1099 position between the town and the party in question? She's a W-2.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
We saw the community saw value added, and there are so many different grants out there. And I think it was a comment at town meeting. We're throwing it onto the department heads to go after this stuff, and there's only so many hours in a day. We were saying the fire department needed grants or otherwise, or we're talking about how to pay for stuff. So we said, we've got to if we're serious about going after free money, then we should hire a grant writer. And it went out twice. We had an initial hiring period where we didn't get any interest, and then we wound up having good interest on the second round through.
So
Interesting.
future meeting. if we
Then
could,
we'll add
please,
it
sir.
to the agenda and
Thank you.
just tomorrow we'll do that. I think better notes than I do. Thank you. I got an education, but we have a service. In my day job, we had to hire outsource grant writing services because we have a bucket of money to help all of our communities from Athol to here write grants because there's so much federal money out there. So yeah, we don't have enough capacity to do the writing. To your point, like about department heads and our staff.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Liz, yes, it's on the next agenda whenever the next meeting is. I ran through the contract, so we get the highlights and look at the budget. Are there any questions, comments, concerns about the budget? That's what the contract is. It's available for public review and public inspection in the office of, what do you call your office, please? Public record. Development Services has the copy of the contract for review if anybody needs to see it,
We will load it on to my town government.
and you'll upload it to my town government. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we'll be there. Thank you very much. Any other things? If not, we can close 4 and 5. But if so, I'm listening for any other.
Are
You
you
good?
looking?
Any other comments, questions, or concerns about items
No,
4 and 5?
I
The
really
budget and the contract.
think Liz's question about reordering them and doing amendments to the spend plan, that's a really good observation.
Yeah, that's great. And we know we can do it. Thanks. So all. Okay, so I'm gonna put a check mark next to 4 and 5. And I think the next and most important thing, I think, is 6 seeking candidates for office loss. Can we do that?
Do
Go ahead.
we need to take any kind of action on 4 or 5, or is this just a, no?
I think
Okay.
this is FYI, right? I don't
Okay,
think there's an
all right.
action. I don't think there's an action. That's a good question. Asking,
I'm asking stupid.
No, there's no such thing. You're asking the right questions, and the chair is not thinking of educating everybody if this is an action item or an FYI. So I need to be better about that. Thank you, Liz. This is why you're the vice chair. You gotta keep me honest. Thank you. Seeking candidates for questions. Yeah. Glenn's gonna try this again,
Okay.
or again, even seeking candidates for open slots on EDIC. We are still looking for people to fill multiple slots. Yes, we have had some communications with our Housing Authority Director. There's communications going back and forth. We think there's some interest there. That's wonderful. But we are obviously, interested in that slot, or if the party can come on board, great. If can't, that's fine. We need someone to fill the low mod income representative slot and possibly indefinitely other slots. We say at large and probably somebody in the real estate world, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'm looking forward to getting that done when we can, because to be totally, words aren't coming tonight. Transparent, but also, when it's personal, it's only got to do with me. Once the fifth person comes on, I can leave the room when you all talk to MRPC about doing any planning if you want to. Because Karen Chapman from Planning and Development, Director, was here a few months ago. So I don't want to be in the room with those discussions. So I'm really incentivized to see this done. So I'll,
We were hoping that some residents would be interested, but we have not had interest so far. And then we were gonna give it, from the last meeting, we talked about giving it a little bit of time to try and get people from town. And then reaching out to other local professionals surrounding us.
Yep.
Yeah, we did that.
who do business in Templeton at least. Right.
We'll start reaching out.
So if anyone on the board knows of anybody that meets those slots, if you and I can convince maybe tomorrow, just figure what those final empty slots are and say, okay, I know it's real estate. I think it's one at large and there was another one. Because we have four, low mod income, so that would be five.
Mhm.
So I think it's real estate and then at large. But I don't, I call it at large. In the state statute, it's called something else. I don't remember. Anyway, we'll figure it out.
The generalist.
The generalist, yes, the non-specific, because there are like 4 or 5 with great specificity and others there. So I've addressed item 6. Are there any questions, comments, concerns about 6? And are we good on that one? The least important here is number 7, marketing attraction. I'm much more interested personally hearing about the draft logo updates, and if we have time, then also the permitting, which I'd really like to make sure we talk about. And if we get, so can we do 3 before we go to 8 and then 7 if we have time? Is that okay with you all? Yep. So. C7 at the time. So, Steve, when you're ready, we can look at logos. And Glenn can start talking about admin, which is not that exciting, honestly. But logos are.
Okay. Can we see that? I apologize for the TVs. They're trying to tune them in. The blue is a little brighter than what I have,
I don't think anybody's going to worry about the shade of blue.
except for me.
Okay.
So this is what we started with last time, and we liked having a swoosh.
Love the swoosh.
I believe that was called the swoosh meeting.
Yes. Love it.
So I think it was suggested maybe we try to put the tagline or whatever is below in the swoosh. And remember, I said, you can have a whole logo set. You don't have to just choose one or one tagline in it. At some time, you're going to want to spell out economic development and industrial corporation, maybe on a letterhead or something like that. It was suggested, hey, let's have taglines and maybe we highlight one word. But as I was doing this, and I've worked on not just logos, but taglines. Sometimes it takes for months for magazines to come up with a tagline. We've had countless hours in meetings. Every word is important, so I ended up capping everything and thinking maybe everything should just be bold. Maybe not. I don't know. That's a preference, and we can have a more polished graphic artist that we have on staff at TCTV to really hone these. So I'm just kind of going through my thought process on this, but I like moving community forward, as we said. Oh, let me just back up too. If we want to do something like bring out one word, we may also have a young man who's interested in animation coming on board. So it could just be like a little highlight behind it that could say highlight community or whatever.
We say moving
word.
community forward or moving our community forward.
Last meeting was moving Templeton forward.
Oh.
But then
That's-
we
I
started
like
talking
that. I
about
would-
community.
I like
So-
highlighting the community because that's one of the things that is, I anticipate that will be a sales part for our community is the fact that it is a community. We have a lot going on. We
I remember we were talking about that, and then we were talking about like changing that word.
Right.
I don't know, maybe he's not done yet, but I can remember discussing that part of it. It's like the bold word, bold italicized, whatever, the one that comes out, that's the one you can kind of play with. So, yeah, that's a good point.
So there it is in all bold.
Okay.
And then you can move sustainability forward. Moving growth forward.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, the triangle's become a little rocket ship. And if you're gonna have a contrail these days, I mean, just make it day glow green. Why not? It's the young color, and you can have fun with it. This one's for the kids. And there's a smiley face at the end. So you can do lots of different things with it. We can, if you like, I can assign Caitlin, who's good at doing logos. She did the Montechusett TV logo after dealing with me for months on it. And should be happy to put some of these together in a more polished form for you.
I like bolding just the middle word out of all of them. But I think it becomes a really brilliant thing because we start to build out whatever the marketing, whatever direction marketing goes, those are different things that we can address. So, whether it's a page or, you're scrolling down on a page trying to tell a story, how is the edict addressing this? So you have that area and you have that kind of description. You're saying we're moving, sustainability or community, to talk about an outreach plan. What are you doing to preserve the businesses that you have in town? How can we be a voice, like Seaman Paper? They've got to be very concerned about what's happening with the Main Street Bridge. So to be a part of that conversation, to say, we want Seaman Paper to be here. We want Seaman Paper to make sure that they know that they're a valued member of the community. And I think we become a conduit for that. Is that we recognize that maybe that's not development, but it's certainly about addressing employability and keeping companies here and that there's value and worth for that. I think this messaging kind of goes into that.
I want to pick up on what you just said, Mike, about it really is about, this is just that. I'm of the opinion that business wants to be in a community that invests in itself.
Mhm.
And if we, as a community, any community that doesn't invest in itself, and it's infrastructure, pick an infrastructure item, whether it's a bridge or broadband or whatever the item of the issue or task is. If we don't invest in ourselves, then the private sector won't invest in you. And I've seen it time and time and time again. So I think that's really, investing in our community. Those are three words that can be on the tagline. And because when we make those investments, we want to send a message out that we are investing because we want that investment, whether it's organic growth, that someone's working in their home-based business, whether it's alpacas or something online, they're selling services, or they're an eBay person that's making $1 million. Whatever it is, we invest, you invest in us. It's mutually done.
Moving alpacas forward.
Moving alpacas forward.
Yeah.
Behind the fence.
I don't look
No,
like
no, let's not go there. Let's just not go there.
Let's have to do a lot of that. Let's corralling them back into the.
Yes,
moving alpacas
today,
back into the
moving
corral.
into the corral today. Yes,
Yeah.
they
So-
decided to go on a walk.
So if you like, I'll have a real graphic artist take over this and polish it, and let me know if you want moving our community forward. Moving
No, I
Templeton
think
forward.
it's much better the way you have it right now.
It is.
Because you can really, the takeaways, Templeton, good, Edict, good, the swoosh, excellent. The triangles become a way, like a canvas for you to be able to have different takes, different, playing with the logo. And then the tagline underneath, not bolded except for the operative word.
Mhm.
And when we're using it, if that's the basic one, then that's what it would look like. But I love how it's going to be a dynamic logo, not just static. And like we throw that on everything, you know, people will be familiar with that, or at least that's the design, and to get people familiar with it. And then they'll understand as they see us go on. You know, what is our daily story? You know, if we're on LinkedIn and people are subscribing to it, the content that can be generated can use those different, that can be, you know, today we want to talk about sustainability. Tomorrow we want to talk about, you know, community ties. So I like what you've done.
Thank you. I'll second that. I really like it also. I think it's great. Not only that, it gives a little bit of fun and you know, and personality. So you need positive personality, then yeah, this is good.
We want to be
Looks good.
positive. That's it.
But he's got the left and right limits to say he can't, you know, start using orbs or, you know, he's got pretty much, I think we're all agreeing. Or jazz hands? No jazz hands.
Sparkle. All right, so I think we're in agreement that,
Yeah.
yeah, continue, that this is the direction we want to go in. This is important. Some people might not see this as something important, but it is. It starts setting the direction for the EDIC and what we want to accomplish.
It's a piece of everything that we're doing. It's, you know, you have to have a marketing plan. This is a piece of that. Scope for the marketing consultants, a piece of that, or the media devices. We use, those are, these are all pieces. This is our doorway. This is our face. Is what people say. Would it be possible, Steve, that when before the next meeting, whenever that is, could we get it 3 to 5 business days before, so we can have some time to absorb it mentally, you know, on our screens before we see it. That's all I would ask. I agree with everything. Mike was.
Awesome.
All right, I like this.
I have my marching orders.
And I guess if we want to attract the gamers, go ahead.
When we get on Twitch.
You know, Twitch, I gotta Google that tonight. Oh my goodness, I have to look it up on the internet. Okay, thank you. Now, Steve, are you looking for a vote for direction? I mean, can we just, do you want it to be clean? Do you want to clean, do you want to vote to keep it clean, or
Let's keep it clean. Let's
just do a vote and say, sure. So I'll look for a motion, whatever you folks want.
Make a motion for the EDIC to move forward with the logo plan as presented this evening.
Is there a second? Second, any discussion on the motion before? Perfect. We're good. Mike, how do you vote?
Yes.
Liz, how do you vote? Steve, how do you vote? Yes. Want to vote yes? I'm going to say yes, and it's unanimous 4-0. Thank you all.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. I'll say, all right, so we did number 3, and if we can do 8 on permitting. So if I remember correctly, I asked Lori to throw this on because there's something I wanted to say about permitting and have a few minutes to discuss, but something that Lori wants to say about permitting too. So can I just open the background? Is that in land permitting, that's a big part of what we're talking about, permitting for an existing structure. What we're really talking about is enticing people who are already here to grow their business, whether it's home occupation or agriculture, whatever, pick the type. All right, so it's talking about, we want to encourage local organic growth. There will be some people that we want to provide expansion space to, whether they live within our zip codes or whether they're from without the zip codes. So talk about, you know, creating jobs through businesses that are organically developed here, or that come from outside to our area. If we're talking about the area of permitting, especially land permitting, the reality is that developers, I'll talk about the economic developers, people that are building small malls, which I'm not generally interested in, but the widget making stuff, the industrial park, land subdivision development. The longer the process is to go through permitting for a developer, the shorter attention span they have, and the less likely we'll be able to attract businesses from the outside or the inside, whoever that is. Now, there are ways to facilitate permitting, to comply with all the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and the community. That's not the issue here. No one's trying to push anything through faster. But in Massachusetts, we are one of the few states in the United States where land permitting and some other permitting can take a while. I want to say more, but the microphone's on. The reality is that if we can be proactive, business friendliness, let me just cut to the chase. Business friendliness, a part of the definition is about permitting. and permitting that is clear, transparent, as expeditious as possible while not violating laws, rules, and regulations, and policies. So, having said that, if there is a way someday, I'd love to have a meeting with, one representative from Health Board, Concom, Planning Board, and the Building Inspector. I don't know if we can coordinate and get them on the one single. We'll go to the meetings. I don't know what we
Or
can
come
do.
up with a list of,
Issues.
right, information requirements that we have, and then
Yeah.
we can go on out and,
Right.
divide and conquer.
Yeah, and we can take the message to say, we want to be business friendly, because business friendliness by some community standards, whether they're edicts from development authorities or economic development committees, they think that the smile and putting quality of life on the website, and that we have clean breathable air and more trees than people, that's business friendly. That's all true. But business friendly really is about having a professional relationship with people that are going to develop land. And in return, they're going to hire people and they're going to pay taxes. Having said that, I know there is a state statute. This is a separate order. You want to talk about Templeton's positive history with a certain state statute to do expedited permitting. And then that just, this is more, oh, by the way, this is information, so we're not looking for a vote. I should say
Right.
that.
So we do have limited experience with expediting. We actually, with the work that's proposed for the elementary school in Baldwinville, we put that through our first expedited permit process through the zoning board of appeals. So we do have a base to start from. I do think what you just said about meeting with the departments and maybe putting something down is a great idea, and I do think you would be able to get them to attend a meeting. I do think that would be something that they would be interested in. But we do have a little bit of experience. I feel like it went really well. And because of it, I do think we are going to be flush with affordable housing at some point in time because of the development of the school. And I think we can probably move that process forward.
So that's all good. So this is a good thing to say on our website someday. Hey, Templeton has experience in meeting chapter 43, the expedited permitting statute. We've done this before. We'd like to talk to you about what you're doing in the future. And that's the kind of message that's business friendly. That's the kind of message that developers want to see. And the last thing I'll say on permitting is that the reality is for developers I've talked to over the last few years, 20 years, and I care to admit, when they open a zoning bylaw and they see in commercial industrial development, and they look at the use table, and I'm digging into the weeds and I apologize, but when they look in the column for commercial for C and the I for industrial, and they go down and they see, if they see more SP for special permit than they do by right, they examine maybe 10 bylaws at a time, and they'll look for the ones that are by right. I'm not saying anything about our current zoning bylaws. I haven't read the table in 20, 15 years. The reality is that that's just the way it works. If a company wants to locate here and they see SPs, they just they shred that zoning bylaw, they just dismiss that PDF and they go somewhere else. That's the reality of the world in which we live. And this is not a political statement, this is just reality. And that's why, generally speaking, the Northeast can, for only one variable, only one reason, we lose to Tennessee and the Carolinas and other states, because they are much more welcoming. And that's really my point. If we're more welcoming in our zoning and our policies, our procedures, and we provide them with good data, really good demographic data on our demographics, and our unemployment rate, and our trained staff, our trained populations. That's what developers want. They also want good permit processes. So I just wanted to throw the by special permit by that thing. I'm not going to go home and read the bylaws tonight. The reality is that these things exist, and ever since Mass Development acquired from the Department of Defense the Devon's property, they have a streamlined permitting process. In reality, the Devon's permitting staff, Devon's Enterprise Commission, or DEC, they communicate with a prospective applicant for 6 to 12 months before they even file a permit. That's another part of business friendliness. So there's nothing wrong with that. They have lunches and they come in and they say, okay, what's the process? What do we expect in your permitting procedures? And for the last 20 years or more, in my day job at the Regional Planning Agency, we're trying to just show to local communities, if you want economic development, then you may or may not have to make your permitting procedures, just don't give it away. Don't rubber stamp everybody that comes in. But just make it a little easier for the developers, because I will end by saying that if the average housing subdivision in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts takes 2 years or more to get permitted. And the reality is that the Board of Health has its issues with septic. We have a legitimate laws to comply with. The Concom has a state wetlands protection act. The planning board will have the state zoning act, the local districts and zoning bylaws, and the building inspector is there for permit. But the reality is that what a developer wants to see, ideally, is everybody around the table at the same time. And that's what you get through 43D. You have a super permitting board where everyone's there. And we can do, so Templeton, thank you for putting that on the table. Institutionally, we have a good history of that. We can do it again. And if we have that kind of attitude going forward, and it's nothing to do with the EDIC, but if we are saying, look, permitting authorities, are you willing to do 43D in the future for these circles on the map? And that's really what I'm talking about. That's, those purple industrial zones, which is what I see in my brain. And if we designate those as 43D sites, and are you all willing to, can we do this? And if we are, we're going to get industry. We're going to get jobs. That's Glenn's opinion of the world. It's only one opinion of 4 in the EDIC. I just wanted to make sure that I brought this to the EDIC because even though we don't permit, it's an important issue. If we get developers coming in someday and they say, we'd love to be in your town, but that special permit stuff, or whatever the reason is. And we say, okay, well, actually, we wish we could, because that's 100 new jobs or 50 new jobs. That's a shame. Well, Okay, Glenn's speech is over for the record. Thank you. Liz, please.
So very educational. And if there are ways that we can copy what other towns, other entities have found that are successful, I'm all for doing that. That there's certain, I'll say, there are certain businesses that we would be more, I think, in favor of than others. From a community standpoint, I'm not saying this as an EDIC member, I'm just saying from a community standpoint, that there are things that we would rather have, and there are also state laws and everything else that we have to follow. But I think,
Master plan talks about, yep.
yeah, it does. Yeah, I read parts of it. I gotta go back and reread it again. But the master plan does talk about it. We do need to make sure that we are inviting, that we do make it easier. It's not, it's like, oh my, I don't want to go talk to Templeton because they make it difficult. But,
And that's not what we want.
no,
We want to be.
exactly, because we want to bring, businesses in, we want to bring jobs in, we want to do all of these things. And, are there things that we need in our infrastructure to be able to be more, it'd be more advantageous to certain, and it's things like that, that we got to figure out. And then there are other boards, committees that need to be also on board with whatever it is that we need to be doing.
And I should say for the record, I really need to say this. I don't want to give the farm, excuse me, you're an agriculture.
That's okay.
I don't want to give, things away that are injurious, and that's a very important term in the zoning bylaw that don't make sense in our community. But this is the area in which the planning boards have to deal mostly. And the reality is that there are 3 or 5 or 7,000 business classifications according to the IRS. I don't remember them, but there's multiple thousands. It's like I said. We're not going to have a use table of 3,000 business classifications. Figure out who like this, we don't like that, blah, 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 blah. But we have some general, classifications for industry. Industry is allowed. Okay. Somebody needs to take a look at that. That's fine. And they can look more closely at what industry is. That's fine. That's not for us. That's for planners. But the reality is that we do want to be a business friendly community, but there are many websites out there when you go to anybody and say, we're business friendly, we have clean air. Okay, what they really want to know is, do you have a trained workforce? And what's your employment rate? And how far is that workforce from the job site? And how fast can they build a building and business to get their widgets sold? And that's the bottom line. And if they think they can work with you, if they can get there, that's really where the rubber hits the road. What we're talking about.
It's like, so I drove around town with Tim going, well, let's see. All right, does just looking at other, just pieces of land, just my own edification, right? Going, well, could somebody do something with this piece of land, right? Oh, it's not on town water, it's not on town sewer. It's like, what, okay, what would we have to do? You know, and I'm sitting there playing 20, my husband, poor guy. You know, I play 20 questions with him going, well, what is it going to take? You know, what would it cost to be able to move, get water here? And he's going, do you know what? No, I don't. And in some of those areas that would be advantageous
Keep going.
to businesses, to be able to do, but you have to have the septic and the sewer or the water or whatever it is, and all the rules around that to be able to meet. And
Well, some of those questions, Liz, I think, we still have the quote. I think we were waiting. Is the gentleman's name David Connor?
Yes.
Yeah, we had talked about the RFP to send out to get our, basically what our plan is going to be. And we put it on the shelf for a moment because we wanted to have the discussion as a larger thing. Getting that down the road will answer some of those questions. Where do we stand this infrastructure wise? What are our priorities going to be? What are the questions? What are our information requirements necessary? I don't think we moved on this yet.
we have, we're waiting on the other person, so that way Glenn can.
If we don't have somebody in the pipeline, then we should probably think about moving towards that economic plan.
Or give you one more person.
Right, I mean, we could just, that's a valid point, we can discuss it here, I just wanted to know Marcus Sequels back, because that person works for me, and I don't.
Yep.
But yes, we need to move that forward.
Next meeting, when we talk about it.
Yeah, can we have the economic development plan on the agenda for the next meeting? You're trying to. I didn't
Yeah,
follow that.
so how I connected it was like Liz is, saying, how do you move some of these big rocks like infrastructure, the lack of infrastructure in some areas of the town. So if you do get interest and you get, you get someone, you get a large company comes in and says, well, what do you have to offer? I noticed that your permit, you actually were successful turning a permit around quickly. Where are you with taxes? What are you amendable to, we've, in my time here in town, I don't think it's ever been the residential has been the corporate tax rate.
Yeah, they're equal, they are single tax class.
Moving forward, to have a discussion with the assessor always makes that, the board of assessors always makes that recommendation.
Right.
But to have a conversation to say, how could that play a role into it? So permitting, tax,
So we just-
infrastructure plan.
Infrastructure is the biggest thing, is because it takes years to put that in place. Some of it might, I'm guessing, could be through grants and other things. And all right, I subscribe to the 7 Ps. Prior proper planning.
Oh,
prevents-
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's for performance.
Yeah.
Yes, I may or may not have used it, but I understand. what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying, yes.
Yeah, so
So
6 or 7.
I think it wouldn't be
Yeah.
a bad idea if we brought the zoning map in the town-wide zoning map. If we just got kind of a little of mini discussion for 15 minutes every year to say, look at the purple zones.
Yeah.
We know where the infrastructure is. And we know where it's not. And back in 6 to 8, a colleague and I did, design certain zoning districts in the town. And the industrial zones, not every industrial zone, commercial zone, purple and yellow areas, whatever the colors are, I apologize,
Oh, you're right.
those were the colors back then. Some have infrastructure, some don't, the jewel in the crown, it's a Route 2 and Baldenville exit, Baldenville Road exit, when the auction facility went, there's
Yep.
land there at the 4 corners.
Yep.
Where there's broadband, water, sewer, electric, and transportation, so that's access. We have some rail access, we have to look at with or without structure, we have some other industrial zones that have water or sewer. But that's when you're talking about the grants and everything, which is a longer prospect. The reality about the short story about grants is, we'll need to take this up at the next meeting to put on the agenda. Yes, I'm looking forward to meeting the grant writer. Because we can have a discussion with that person about how you marry an industry coming in, we need the water and sewer pipe there. And does the grant work in time? At the day job, we counsel communities and having the grants in to do those things. So we can have that kind of meeting also, figure that out. So that's a great conversation. I think we want to be done in 5 minutes ahead of the 5-minute hard deadline. So can we put the ED plan on the next meeting, the grant, grant, Grant writer services task on the agenda, TV plan on next meeting, maybe put the zoning map on the bylaw to do a review of our infrastructure on the next agenda. And having said that, can we move away from permitting and move toward, what was the last thing here, marketing and attraction? We put that on the next agenda. I think what I'll do is I'll spend more time. The bottom line there is I attended a class recently about marketing for economic development organizations in the day job. They sent out a nice book and a bunch of PowerPoints. Electronically and by hard copy, I'll provide it all to Liz. It'll be in the office. Read that stuff. I'll have like 3 or 4 bullets on the agenda for next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Provide.
So Lord, who do I say?
You said this.
Thank you, Liz. I'm surprised I didn't say Tory, to be honest with you.
And just to throw this in there real quick for you, informational purposes only, planning board is currently reviewing the zoning
Yes.
bylaws.
Yeah, they
So,
had that public input in their last meeting.
yep, and they're doing it again tomorrow night.
Okay,
So if you have any suggestions for areas, email me.
Okay.
They're looking at King Philip Trail. 202.
Which is great because it's great highway access. but
Right.
It's limited on infrastructure, but it has some, but that's a valid discussion. for the future as well. So zone it, don't worry about the pipes now.
Right.
You zone it and you
Right.
figure that out later. So. Is
Some places are gonna be cheaper to put the pipes in
Oh,
the,
absolutely,
It's closer,
absolutely. I
yes.
mean, a 100-foot extension of a water or a wastewater pipe is a lot cheaper than 5,000 feet. You're absolutely right. So we have to kind of put some push pins on that now. Figure that out. And I don't remember where all the push pins are. But I know that, you're closer to the data. I know the planning board has a really good idea. And other parties, obviously, utility entities that matter. So. I think we hit all the items on the agenda. We have 3 items for the agenda next time, and I'll talk to, and what Lori and I do is a week before the agenda or 2, we talk about items. Sometimes I add some things, and I try to keep everything on, so we can at least discuss stuff. But those 3 are definitely what we'll have on. Is there anything that you need to talk about other than, that's on the agenda, other than what's our next meeting date?
November 6th.
11/6,
at 6, right?
Yes.
6 p.m. Same location.
Do you have, for Jess and, Lori, do you have that on your town calendar, like as an appointment? Are we on that as well? Do you send it out as an appointment? Because I'm not seeing it on any of the calendars. So if it's, you already have it, if you could add our emails to that, that would be helpful, because then it would pop up someplace. I feel like I haven't been reactive.
So we post everything on my town government. We can add-
But it's on your Outlook. Like do you use
Yeah,
your
I put
Outlook
it on-
calendar?
I put it on my calendar. I can add your emails to that.
Hugely helpful.
thank you, ladies, for everything you've done so far.
Yeah,
Thank
We
you.
like to send reminder emails.
yeah,
Yes.
right, and it helps, it is
Put
a
it on the
saver.
calendar, it'll be
All right.
easier for you.
Okay,
And those reminders I find helpful. It's the day of, 2 days, in
Yep.
a week ahead, 3 or 4. I mean, with Barry, me with Lauren, it's very helpful. Thank you for doing so. Well, the only thing left is adjournment. So we're gonna make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
About 9:24 is what the big clock says. Is there a second on the motion?
second.
All those in favor of adjourning, Mike?
Aye.
Liz?
Yes.
Steve? Yes. I'll make it unanimous at 9:25. Thank you all.
I hope it's not.